Cancer is one of the scariest words in the English language. If you haven't experienced it, you likely know someone who has. My guest today not only survived it, she has a miraculous story to tell. Annie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me how this started. You started having some pain and you didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, exactly. I was having pain like in my stomach, and severe enough that I was having shooting pains going down my leg. I was having trouble standing upright, and it came on quite quickly. But before that, I was having a lot of issues with my stomach just looking distended. So when the pain set in, I knew that there was something going on, basically.
And your roommate was teasing you about being pregnant. I mean, you were like not a little distended. Like you were trying to do sit-ups, like everything.
Yeah, exactly. I was exercising. I was doing all these things. My roommate would come over and poke at my tummy and be like, "You look pregnant." So
nice roommate.
Yeah, really.
Oh my goodness. So nothing was helping though.
Nothing was helping. You know, I mean, as far as exercise goes, I was seeing results in other areas, but my stomach was not. It was actually getting bigger.
So you ended up in this incredible pain in the hospital, and I know it was really rough. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so I was in and out of the hospital, basically just begging them to do something because I was, just in so much agony. And at the hospital, they ran a number of tests. They did different scans, and they were even just poking and just like prodding at my stomach, and they confirmed that there were 3 large masses in my lower abdominal, that there was one on each ovary and then one on my uterus as well. Each of them were 9 to 11 centimeters.
So they could actually feel them as they were examining you even.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was laying out on the stretcher and they were poking my tummy, and they were doing this and like measuring. You could see they were measuring just with their fingers. They could feel the masses.
Wow. So you're diagnosed with these masses, but they don't actually tell you it's cancer. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was kind of bizarre, to say the least. The hospital was adamant that they did not want to do the surgery right away because they specifically wanted oncology to do the surgery. But then they kind of tried to downplay that, and they said, "Oh, well, oncology is just because they're, more specialized with masses." And it wasn't until I received a package in the mail from the Cross Cancer Institute that had all of these brochures and all this mail-out stuff about how to cope with ovarian and uterine cancer, and that's kind of how I found out.
Oh my goodness! And the surgery that they wanted to do was fairly serious, right?
Yeah. So that was one of the things, is that they wanted to do an exploratory surgery, so with a long incision, as opposed to laparoscopic. Yeah. So they specifically wanted to do an exploratory surgery because they wanted to make sure that they got all of the cancer, and at that point, finally, the surgeon confirmed that yes, it was cancer. You wouldn't be at the Cross Cancer Institute if we thought you had anything besides cancer. So yeah, they wanted to do an exploratory surgery, which would have likely involved a hysterectomy, possibly removing part of my colon, and just what they call staging, which is removing any tissue or any parts of organs that may have been affected by the cancer and where the cancer may have spread. So
you just didn't know what was going to happen.
Exactly, and that's what was really kind of scary, was that they told me they wouldn't know until after the surgery what I would need as far as additional surgeries or chemo or radiation, any other treatments.
So how are you spiritually processing this? Because you're very young to have cancer, and you're facing this. How are you processing that diagnosis?
I don't know if I really was, to be honest. I was kind of in denial. It wasn't really until I got that mail out, that said, that I had cancer. But in the meantime, my mom was on social media and was contacting everybody that she knew to ask for prayers, and I had a number of relatives who were contacting different people, including I had a great aunt who contacted 100 Huntley Street and asked for me to be put on the prayer chain.
On our prayer, she called our prayer line, so it's good to know we had a little role in praying for you as you went through this.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, it was the weekend before my surgery, I started finding out that there was all these friends, acquaintances, and even just friends of friends from all around the world that had heard what was going on. They were all praying for me.
Okay, so the morning of your surgery, you wake up and something is different. What happened?
Yeah, it was so bizarre. So that was the first morning I woke up and my stomach was not looking bloated. I was able to stand up straight without any pain. I was able to move around my house without having to take any painkillers. And even I didn't have shooting pain down my legs. I was able to lay on my side without feeling that stuff was, moving around my ribs, because it had gotten to the point where if I would lay on my side, it felt like there wasn't enough room inside of me, and I had no shortness of breath for the first time in a number of weeks.
Wow.
So
what did you think was happening at that point?
Yeah, well, I had kind of chalked it up to that weird feeling of when you go to the doctors and suddenly you feel fine, and then it's not until you go home again that all the symptoms hit.
Right.
So I kind of thought, okay, well, that's probably what this is. But at the same time, I was also thinking I did have a lot of people praying for me, and I wonder if I even need this surgery. Yeah.
But you show up for the surgery anyway. The surgery does happen. So now you're in the recovery room. What do they tell you?
Yeah, so that was the part that I was dreading the most, was just that fear, because I wasn't going to know until I came out of surgery what the next steps were going to be. So yeah, as I was in the recovery room and I was coming to, my whole family was around me, and my mom told me that I got a miracle. And she told me that the surgeons opened me up expecting 3 large tumors, and instead all they found was one single fibroid, which is completely naturally occurring, is nothing to be alarmed about. And yeah, so there should have, what we had been told and what all the tests showed was, a large tumor on each ovary plus one on my uterus. There was nothing on my ovaries. And in fact, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome a number of years ago, and I had had a number of ultrasounds over the years that all confirmed, the wording was always, numerous cysts on each ovary. And the surgeons couldn't find any cysts on my ovaries. They couldn't find any scarring, any damage to my ovaries from all of that. And I mean, certainly no tumors. And then just this ordinary fibroid that they were kind of well, we're in here anyways, we might as well take that out. But that's really all they had to do.
So tell me about these conversations with doctors, because they don't like the unexpected in a way. And were they admitting that this could be a miracle?
Yeah, they were. Some of them were admitting it very reluctantly. Some were saying, well, I don't believe in miracles, but yes, there is no medical explanation for that. Because that was something that was really important to me, was that I wanted to be able to say that I had had a miracle that could be backed up by science, that wouldn't be undone by someone coming and saying, well, actually, this is actually what happened. And so, every nurse that came in the room, every doctor that came in the room, we all told them what had happened. We asked them, is there any scientific or medical explanation for this? And all of them, they would try to come up with an explanation. They would be like, well, maybe you fell. And I'd be like, nope. Didn't fall. Oh, well, maybe it was cramps from your period. Nope, it wasn't that. So whatever explanations they tried to come up with, I could tell them right away that that's not what it was. So
here's what I love about your story, because you weren't necessarily totally sure about healing. You weren't 100% even really believing for a miracle. So tell me about how this has changed your view of healing and the power of God.
Yeah, I mean, you read about healings in the New Testament, and I had just sort of thought, okay, well, I guess it happened back then, but I didn't know that I really believed that it could happen now. And there was a lot of times where I would hear about someone else being healed, and I would kind of wonder, okay, but what actually happened. You know, like if
I
I were
skeptic.
Exactly. If I were to talk to a doctor, what would they say what would they say had happened? So yeah, it really just confirmed for me that, you know, that miracles still do happen today. And I mean, really all I had was just a literal mustard seed of faith, you know, just my mom saying, well, I have people praying for you, and me being like, okay, cool. I mean, yeah, if that works, then great.
So just 30 seconds left. How does this change how you see God?
It's kind of done away with my legalistic view. I used to think that, you know, oh, well, if something miraculous happens, you have to be good enough to earn it. And now it's just fleshed out for me how perfect God is. It has nothing to do with, you know, your imperfections or your perceived perfections. It's really just all about how perfect God is.
Such a good word. Thank you so much for coming today and sharing your story.
Thanks very much.